Tonight, 3 News has learned the name of the man shot during a disturbance at the Four Winds Apartments off of Weber.
It was around 9:40 last night when officers with the Corpus Christi Police Department and SWAT were called to that scene. And we're told when officers arrived at the apartment, Preston Graham opened the door and reportedly threatened officers, asking, quote, if they were ready to die. Police said Graham eventually coming out of the unit with an AR-style assault weapon, prompting officers to fire at him.
Although Graham was hit, he went back into the apartment, closing the door behind him. It was just after 11:30 when SWAT officers were able to get inside the apartment. That's where they found Graham's gunshot wound. He did not fire his weapon at the officers, and no officers were hurt.
From local stories to Wayne County news, get ready to dive into everything happening in North Carolina with Taylor House Publishing. Got a story to share? Shoot us an email at taylorpublishinghouse@gmail.com. If you're looking to publish your book or need some top-notch mentorship, we've got your back. Join the excitement with the one and only Richard Taylor, right here at Taylor House Publishing. Speak with Richard directly at 919-587-7782. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and invite your family and friends to watch.
From Wayne County to the Carolina coast, Taylor House brings the news you love most. Tune in on YouTube, don't miss a beat. Local stories that keep you in your feet.
Taylor House, we got the scoop.
Taylor House Publishing.
Peace and blessings, ladies and gentlemen. The news video that you just saw is regarding the demise of 29-year-old Preston Graham of Corpus Christi, Texas, who is yet another victim of police unalivement. Mr. Graham was unalived on July the 22nd, 2024 of this year, about 4.5 months ago. And I've had the opportunity to talk to his mother, Miss Yvonne Davis Brown, and she gives a much different narrative to what the police are saying in that video and other articles. Her son was a quiet individual. He was a father, and he avoided social media. He was a very private individual. Hadn't been in any trouble since his childhood, a little misdemeanor here and there. However, on this night in particular, he was at his apartment in Four Winds. I think he had been staying there for a couple of months. He was known by all of his neighbors as a very quiet and respectful neighbor. However, he did have a disgruntled ex-girlfriend. And as the saying goes, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Now, this ex-girlfriend had already been to his apartment before. She had even kicked down the door with another person. Preston Graham had called the police on this occasion, yet and still the police did nothing. And also, Preston was a gun owner, a legal gun owner. So evidently, he was in a position to protect himself if this incident happened again. So on this particular night, Preston was at his Four Winds apartment with his new girlfriend. And at that time, the old disgruntled girlfriend kept texting, kept harassing him, kept threatening to come over with somebody and do something to him. So much so that his new girlfriend asked and requested to be taken home. Now, at that moment, Preston obliged. He took her home and then returned back to his apartment. Now, here are two conflicting statements on why police were originally called. The first statement says that someone called the police with reports that an armed man was trying to break into the apartment where Preston lived. Now, of course, we know that not to be true. Now, the second narrative is that a neighbor called the police in regards to a disturbance. Nevertheless, the police arrived, and because of the previous ongoing events of him being threatened by this girl, allegedly, according to the mother, the police knocked on the door, and if anybody has, any dealings with police knocking on your door, they give an aggressive knock. Now, at that time, if I'm not mistaken, Preston refused to come out. Evidently, he thought it was someone who was trying to harm them. Now, at that point, I think he lived in the upstairs apartment. And so the police had retreated downstairs to the bottom where they could not be seen. And so when Preston finally came to the door, he opened the door, and if he did say what he said, it would have been in regard to the people who had came to his home to threaten him, or so he thought. And so the story goes, of course, the mother has to go off what the police are saying. He came to the door with his AR style 15 pointed at the ground, and he opened the door and looked out. And then once again, if he said what he said, he was probably trying to warn someone who was potentially going to harm him. However, when he looked out, he didn't see anyone. And so that is when, according to the mother, he took a couple of steps forward and looked down at the bottom of the steps. And when he looked down, apparently they said that the gun raised from, pointing down to at an angle by his knee. Now, it was at that point that the police opened fire on him. And when the police opened fire on him, he didn't raise the gun. He didn't point the gun at him. And none of these articles say that he pointed the gun at the police. He ran back into the home. And when he ran back into the home, that is when he succumbed to the injuries. Now, the mother and the family are very upset because of this. It is said to me that the police would not release the body cam footage to her, and they actually erased the footage from Preston's own security camera that was stationed at his apartment. It was also said that the police have been uncooperative with the family about the events leading up to the shooting. They, of course, reached out to, certain agencies, and those agencies in regards to people who supposed to fight for justice, the NAACP and people of that nature, have yet to take up the cause. Now, there was an individual, I think, that was able to obtain the footage from the police, and those police are going around and showing this footage to certain people. And it was at that point, I think, the mother was able to view the footage from a third party. Now, if you haven't done anything wrong, then why would you not want to show the family the video footage? Also, they want to paint the narrative, as you heard in the video, that SWAT was at the scene. There was they make it seem like it was a standoff. However, reading from another relative on a social media post, they said that the family did come out there, and while they were standing out there, they were asking, to see their brother or their son, and the police neglected to let them do that. But they stayed out there knowing that Preston was already deceased. Now, once again, Preston was a 29-year-old man. He was a loving father, a loving friend, And, he didn't have any history of violence, let alone violence towards the police. But yet again, this is another case that has not received any national attention. There has been, once again, no outcry, no media coverage, as we have been seeing with a lot of these police shootings lately, which causes one to think that it is not such a serious matter as it once was. As the years pass, whether it was Mike Brown, Freddie Gray, Philando Castile, Walter Scott, and the list goes on and on and on, Alton Sterling, all of these police-involved unalivements of black men at the first sight of a situation. Now, granted, a person who's in possession of a weapon, exercising their First Amendment right or Second Amendment right, coming to the door in anticipation of some danger happening unto them, should be able to do that without being harmed by the police. The police should have some tactics where, they're able to identify themselves. Again, they were at the bottom of the steps, so he had no knowledge of who they were. So yet and still, the mother, Miss Yvonne Davis Brown, is looking for transparency. She's looking for justice. And this is just, once again, yet another situation. I don't know if the investigation is still open, but this is the third unalivement by Corpus Christi, Texas Police Department in a matter of months. It's also been 2 more young men whose name that she gave me that have been unalived by the police this year in Corpus Christi. So why is it, once again, I'm going to have to ask this, why is it that there are no black officers running around unaliving white young men at the first sight of a pistol? Why are there no white officers unaliving young white men at the first sight of a pistol or a weapon or a situation, or when they're running, or when they're resisting? People want to always point the finger at the individual after the fact. When these police officers are trained, they should be trained to negotiate situations, to handle situations without the loss of life. If they can do that in certain situations, then why can't they do that in situations like my brother Preston Graham and other situations? And again, as usual, police put out articles which in somehow justifies their actions, almost criminalizing Mr. Graham. As you see from this article, it says ME's office identifies Southside shooter unalived as Preston Graham. Now, Preston Graham didn't shoot anyone. So why is he identified in this article as a shooter? As a shooter, why would, and of course, when people read that article, oh, this shooter, he was shooting, so it must have been justified for them to unalive him. But this is a clear-cut example of them once again vilifying the victim. And as Malcolm X said, if you're not careful, the police will have you thinking that the criminal is the victim and the victim is the criminal. So in this case, the victim is Preston Graham, but as you see in this article, they are trying to paint Mr. Graham as the criminal. And so prayers go out to his mother. She's going through a very terrible time. If you guys do have any recourse for her down in the Texas area, please feel free to reach out to me, 919-587-7782, or email me at taylorpublishinghouse@gmail.com, and I will relay any subsequent messages, advice, direction, guidance that you can give this mother as she continues to fight for justice for her son Preston's. Peace and blessings. Y'all have a great night. Thank y'all for tuning in. Peace and love.